Kwaba, welcome to this week's edition of Ghana in Focus with myself, Kwame, Ghanaian writer, journalist, broadcaster, podcaster, and entrepreneur. And in this week's version or edition of Ghana in Focus, Black Love, Black Legacy, a community survival message. Okay, so that's the theme for this week's show. Black Love, Black Legacy, a community survival message. Now, before we get into the show, before that, if you like what you hear, please subscribe to Ghana African Fix on YouTube, hit the notification bell. I mean that every time we upload a new podcast, YouTube will notify you. Again, subscribe to Ghana African Fix on Spotify. Look out for Ghana African Fix on Spotify. Hit the follow button, meaning that every time we upload a new podcast, Spotify will notify you. And for that matter, we're on all the major podcast providers. So wherever you get your podcast, just type Ghana African Focus and you can subscribe to the poll. All right. And like I said, it's our 5th anniversary. So we are giving away 10 free sessions. So if you want to book your free session with myself, I've got 10 years of doing business in Ghana. I've got land, I've got property, I've got other bits and pieces as well. We can give you a lot of advice and it's free for the first 10 people to email me in our 5th anniversary giveaway. So like I said, it's 5 years since we started this podcast and we've had many, many, many listeners from around the globe. So thank you to everyone who has tuned in at some point over the last 5 years to Ghana African Focus. All right. And so like I said, if you want to be one of the first 10 people to get a free consulting session with myself, then please email me and I'll leave you my email address in the fullness of the show. All right. So today we're diving into one of the most uncomfortable but necessary conversations in the African diaspora. Yep. So that's namely the relationship between Black love, Black family structure, and Black community survival. Now, this episode was inspired in part by Dr. Umar Johnson's message on African Emancipation Day, where he challenged African men, and I do want to speak about African women, to think deeply about the consequences of choosing partners outside their race or outside the community. He used strong language, calling it hypocrisy and embarrassment. But beneath this, there's a serious question that we need to ask as Black men. And like I said, I will do Black women next week. You Black women dial to go with white men and others and then think anyway about it. We'll do you with you next week. But this week it's about Black men. So what happens to a community, particularly in the diaspora, where we are, small minority, when the community's future, when it's the men, build families outside of their race. Now today, we are unpacking that question that Dr. Umar posed with clarity, with evidence, and a focus on empowerment. So let's get into it then. So let's look at the heart of the argument, community first. So Dr. Umar's message that he gave regarding Black men who died outside their race, the core message is simple. Relationships, or rather, a community cannot survive if it does not reproduce itself culturally, socially, and economically. So relationships are not just about personal choices, as you think they are, particularly in the West. They are political acts with generational consequences. So, for example, if you as a Black man, you go with a non-Black woman, there was a real possibility that your grandchild would be a white person. So, for example, if you Black man, you went with a white woman, Caucasian white woman, doesn't matter if it's Italian, Spanish, Dutch, German, English, right? You went with a white woman. Your child will be mixed race, not Black, mixed race. And then if your mixed race child goes with another white person, yeah, your grandchild will be a white person. Is that what you want? That's the consequences. Or let's say, for example, if you black man, you went with a Chinese woman, yeah, and you had a child with that Chinese woman, your child would be half Chinese. Now, if that Chinese child, half Chinese child, went with a white woman, just for example, right, your grandchild will be part Chinese, part white. Is that what you want, black man? So that's what I'm talking about, the consequences of this. So when African men and women choose each other, they build families rooted in a shared cultural experience, a shared cultural identity. They strengthen community identity as well. They reinforce social cohesion. And more importantly, they produce children who inherit a unified heritage. Yeah. This then reinforces social cohesion and create continuity between the past, present, and the future. This is what a lot of black men and black women who go outside their race don't understand. Yeah, continuity between the past, present, and the future. So this is not about hatred, because some people come and say, oh, you're being racist, oh, you're being racist. No. Right? It's not about being racist at all. It's about preservation, self-preservation. Every strong community on earth, be they Jewish, Chinese, Indian, Arab, Turkish, they maintain itself through in-group family building. What does that mean? That means basically they marry each other. So most Jews marry Jews. Most Chinese marry Chinese. Most Indians marry Indians. Most Arab marry Arabs. Turkish marry Turks in the main. Yeah? That's what is called self-preservation and group family building. And that's how culture survives. Yeah? So, given this then, black people in the West, particularly somewhere like the UK, deserve the same right to protect their continuity just like other groups of people. Yeah? So look at the next segment of the show, which is the economic dimension. Wealth leakage. This is what, again, most black people tend to avoid. But let's talk economics. So you, as a black man, and like I said, I'm doing black women next week, but when you, as a black man, you build a family outside your race or your community, and then you suddenly pass away before your wife, who's not black, or your accumulated wealth leaves the black community permanently. Yeah. So it's not about blaming individuals, it's about understanding structural consequences. This is why it's important to marry within your community. So, for example, if a black man marries a black woman, yeah, and then he dies before her, your wealth that you've accumulated goes back to the black community. But when you marry outside of your race, that goes to that community who is not necessarily black, who then, right, have more wealth anyway, yeah? And then you as a black man, because you married outside of the race, you then give your wealth to another group to empower them, and then you disempower yourself. So, black communities globally face low wealth accumulation, high poverty rates, lower intergenerational transfers, and this is very, very important here, lower intergenerational transfers, and also less access to capital. Smaller businesses, ownership rates. So when wealth leaves the black community through marriage, particularly intermarriage, it creates wealth leakage, it reduced inheritance for black children, it creates weaker community institutions, less capital for black entrepreneurship, and less financial stability for future black generations. So this is not theoretical, it is measurable. So if a community is already economically fragile, like the black community in Britain is, yeah, or the black community in France, or the black community in Spain, or the black community in the Netherlands, or the black community in Belgium, it cannot afford to lose wealth through intermarriage. And that's very, very important, because when you marry, you're not just marrying that woman, you're marrying outside of your community as well. And so we move on to the next segment, which is very, very important: cultural continuity and child development. Now, children need cultural grounding. When African children grow up in homes where both parents are black, both parents are African, the same cultural background, they benefit from shared identity, a shared history, a shared African worldview, shared African traditions, a shared language, yeah, and also, more importantly, shared community expectations. Now, what the above highlights is that it creates a psychological stability, meaning that children who are born to two black parents, they know who they are, where they come from, and what they represent. Now, when that cultural identity is split or diluted, particularly if a black man marries a white woman, a Chinese woman, an Indian woman, etc., the children of that relationship struggle with confusion, yeah, also identity conflict, and this is big time, a big consequence of this. And we know for a fact that in Britain, the UK, many children of mixed heritage are battling with their identity. Are they black? Are they white? You know, depending on which side of the family they are and which side do they take. There's also a disconnection from heritage. So again, when a black man marries a white woman, yeah, 9 out of 10 cases, that mixed heritage child is disconnected from the African heritage. Most mixed race children do not know, particularly if the father's African, do not know the African culture, heritage, and identity. And this creates weak ties to the black community. And, you know, the child also has difficulty navigating racial realities. So even though that child is mixed race, right, he's not white, but he's not black either, the child has difficulty navigating these racial realities and boundaries. So again, this is not about being racist, as some of you may think it is. This is not about attacking anyone. It's about acknowledging the real development advantages of cultural continuity. And so now moving to the next segment, where we look at the political dimension. Power requires unity. So a community cannot fight for its rights if it is fragmented and separated, as the black community, to all intents and purposes, are in the UK, particularly the so-called black British community. So black political power, yeah, so if black people in Britain are going to ever get black political power, that depends on strong black families, strong black communities, strong cultural identity, and also strong intergenerational continuity. So when two black people marry, this is what happens. You get strong black communities, you get stronger black cultural identity, and more importantly, you get a strong intergenerational continuity, which then creates the foundation and the cornerstone for black political power. Now, when family structures weaken, political unity weakens. When political unity weakens, economic power weakens. When economic power weakens, the community becomes vulnerable. So black love is not just about romance, yeah, but I'll come on to that in a minute, right? Our community is vulnerable when we do not marry together. Now, you see other communities, the reason why they're strong economically, you know, the Jewish community, the Sikh community, the Hindu community, you know, the Arab community, the Muslim community, the reason why they're strong is because they marry themselves. So that creates family structures that are strong. Political unity is even more stronger, and that unity creates economic power. And that's why you see all over Britain today, the Sikhs have got power, political power, economic power. Yeah. The Hindus and Sikhs got economic power. Go to Leicester. There's something called the Golden Mile in Leicester, Narber Road. Most of the shops are owned by Hindus and Sikhs. That's economic power. You go to Bradford, yeah. Most of the shops in Bradford are owned by Muslims, yeah. That's economic power. You look at Golders Green, yeah. Most of the shops in Golders Green are owned by Jewish people. That is economic power, giving Jews, like other communities, a strong political base from which to stand from. But black people, because we don't marry ourselves, particularly so-called black British, right? We have no economic power. We have no, power base that we can call our own, that we can use as a foundation for political power. And economic power is a tool towards getting economic power. And again, look at places in England, Leicester, Luton, Bradford, Nottingham, Derby, Leicester, where Asian people are a big majority. You see how many Asian councillors there are in these areas? You see how many Asian MPs there are in these areas? Because of economic power, they're able to get political power and put people that look like them as councillors and MPs. We ain't got that. And like I said, black love is not just about romance, because a lot of people, particularly a lot of our women, have been hoodwinked by this Western perception about love. Oh, I got to love. No, it's not about love. It's about political infrastructure. It's about liking that person and building between the two of you, and then incorporating building for the community as a whole. Yeah? So let's get this love thing out the window, because this love, no, that's a European thing. Yeah? Our parents didn't necessarily need to love one another. All they had was a commitment towards one another, a commitment towards having children, a commitment towards raising children, a commitment towards building stronger black communities. This is what black communities had in the so-called Windrush era, yeah, and even before the Second World War in Britain, yeah. So it moves on nicely to my next section, which is saying that all this what I'm talking about, this drive for black men to marry black women and not marry outside the community, it's not about hate, beloved. I know some of you used to think it's about race. No, it's not about nothing to do about racism at all. It's not about hate. It's about survival, particularly if you're a minority in somewhere like Britain or Germany or France. Yeah, it's about survival. So let me be absolutely clear. This podcast, or the message in this podcast, is not about attacking individual groups per se. It's not about disrespecting individuals. It's not about promoting any superiority. However, it's about promoting the survival of the black community. And the black community can only survive when there's black families of which the undergirding, or the black community can only survive of which the black family is the undergirding, and the undergirding of that is relationships between black men and black women. So every single ethnic group on earth, like I said, if you're a Jew, if you're Muslim, if you're Sikh, if you're Hindu, if you're white, if you're Arab, every single group on earth, right, encourages in-group marriage for cultural preservation. Yeah, look, even Northern Ireland, you won't get a Catholic man and a Protestant, because they want to keep their religion pure. They want to keep it cultural. They want to keep it, intergenerational. They don't want to, mix up between Protestant and Catholic. So in Northern Ireland, right, Catholic marry Catholic, Protestant marry Protestant. Yeah, because that's for cultural preservation. And so black people, African people in the UK, have the same right to protect their lineage, importantly, their heritage, their identity, and most importantly, their future survival. So Black love is not about exclusion. Black love is self-respect. Black love is, more importantly, self-preservation. Black love is also nation building, because we're building a nation, and the cornerstone of a nation is the Black family, and the cornerstone of a family is the man and the woman. And so, final section, a call to action, choose community. So if, yeah, and then frame the question out there, if African or Black people in the UK or France or Germany, particularly where they are a minority, if they want stronger Black families, if they want stronger Black communities, if they want stronger Black cultural identity, if they want stronger Black economic foundations, if they want stronger political power, then African men, Black men, and Black women must choose each other. Not because they hate anyone else, not because they love them. No, sorry, I beg your pardon. Not because they hate anyone else. Not about, like, it's not about hate, but because they love themselves. Like Muhammad Ali says, I love myself. I love my color. I love myself. I don't want to marry after my race. And I put also in the footnotes what Muhammad Ali said about race mixing. Yeah. So also, because Black people love their heritage, because they love their ancestors, because they love their future children to look like them, and because they love their community. They want to see their community prosper and develop into the future. So Black love is a strategy. Black love is a shield. Black love is the foundation of cultural survival and intergenerational existence. And Black love is a responsibility. And so in closing, the message is simple. If we want a strong Black future, we must build strong Black families. If we want strong Black families, we must choose Black love. And if we want Black love, we must value ourselves enough to protect our legacy. Because Black love is not just personal, it is political, it's cultural, it's economic, and importantly, it's spiritual. And it is a necessary. And so I thank you for listening to this edition of Ghana in Focus, examining Black love and the legacy of Black love. If you like what you hear, please share to your friends, your family, social media networks. Subscribe to Ghana African Focus on YouTube. Hit the notification bell. Subscribe to Ghana African Focus on Spotify. Hit the follow button. And like I said, it's our 5th anniversary, so we're giving away 10 consulting sessions. So if you want to be part of those 10, first come, first serve, you can email me on my address, which I'll leave in the footnotes to the show. All right, so next week's episode, we'll be looking about Black women, because we looked at Black men this week. Next week, we'll look at Black women and why Black women who go outside of their race are also an embarrassment and also a walking hypocrisy. And so for myself, Kwame, and from all the crew here on Ghana in Focus, is thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next week in the next edition of Ghana in Focus.